Hello everyone. What I wanted to do today was go back to guitar for a bit now. So if you're on the channel to look at DAW stuff and Cubase work, it's still maybe worth sticking around because I think whenever you come into production or go into working in recording and stuff, if you can sort of approach it from a musician background, so if you can play the keyboard or guitar, even not necessarily to a particularly high standard, but you can play and you can understand these things, it's only going to give you a more advantage when you come to collaborating with others, working in bands or composing on your own. So even if you play piano or a drummer and you use Cubase, it's always handy to know these extra things like the guitar fretboard and stuff. And what we're going to do, I'm going to do a really short series of guitar stuff, and we're going to take a major scale. We're going to look at how that scale's formed, but for the reason being that so you can choose any key on the fretboard or any key on your DAW. So say you're working with someone else and they say we're in the key of B major, you'll know where every single major and minor chord is in B major. And if you're in F sharp major, exactly the same thing. You'll be able to work in every major and minor chord within that given key. We call it a key because that's what we're forming all the chords around. That's sort of our tonic or our root we're going to form things around. So even if you don't play guitar, you stick around. This might still be quite interesting. It's going to be quite a short one. What I've done here, I've written the A major scale in tablature on the sheet here, but the reason I've chosen A major is for no other reason apart from it's in the middle of the guitar fretboard, so it's on the 5th fret. So with 5th fret on the bass string, which is our root note, that's A. And it's just an easier way of playing guitar when it's in central on the fretboard. So the 5th fret, and generally a guitar will have a dot on the 3rd, 5th and 7th, so it's the second dot from the top nut generally. Not always the case, but generally. Okay, and the reason I've chosen this shape is because also it follows a pattern. You'll see if you look at major scales on the internet and stuff, they can all differ. It's the same notes, but they follow a different pattern on the fretboard. But the reason I've written this one, as you can see, I've circled here with this black circle here, and then the red, then the yellow. Each two strings follow their own pattern. So each two strings have the same pattern, but they change. So we've got on the bass string, I probably didn't describe that very well, but on the bass string we've got 5th, 7th, 9th, and then on the A string, the second thickest string, we're again 5th, 7th, 9th. Then we move across onto the D, which is our 3rd thickest string, and you can see here we've got 6, 7, 9. So we've got no fret gap here, we're just straight next door frets, and then we have got a fret gap. So that's our 6, 7, 9, and then 6, 7, 9 again. And then when we go into our yellow circle here, we're 7, 9, 10, and then again on the thinnest string, 7, 9, 10. So we've got the fret gap and then next door frets. And we'll look at that, we'll play through it in a minute. So that's what I've done here. I've circled them because they follow that sort of form. Now, what this is our root note, and then this would be the 2nd degree of the scale. This would be our 3rd degree of the scale, 4th, 5th. And quite often you'll see that written in Roman numerals. So perhaps in the next lesson, we'll look at that because I'm going to show you how these major and minor chords work and how we can shift keys. But it's worth thinking about that. Bear that in mind. So sometimes you'll see these written in Roman numerals, and it basically is just what degree of the scale we are from this root note, which is 1. The other thing is, if you watch the other video where we looked at the root and 3rd of the chord for guitarists, we've got this same principle for the major scale where we've got a tone, which is a fret gap. So we're 5, we miss the next fret and go to 7. That's what we class a tone. A semitone is when we haven't got that gap and we go to next door, so it would be 5 to 6. So 5, 7, 9, we've got a tone to another tone, and then this is a semitone here to the next string. So But think of this so far, it's tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 to a semitone at the end, 6 to 7 at the end. And then I know we've got another load of notes going up, but that's exactly the same, but in what we call an octave. So it's exactly the same notes, but higher up the register. I hope that, that clears that up with the octave. It can be quite confusing, octave, sometimes. But if we just, for today, if you learnt up to this point here, you're covering the first octave. So in that turquoise there, we're covering the first octave there. Okay, so if we have a look at playing this scale, and before we do, one thing to bear in mind is the fingers on your fretting hand, trying to use different fingers wherever possible, and try and incorporate this forefinger, this pinky finger. And also, if you're using a plectrum, which is great, it's not 100% necessary, so if you feel freer using your fingers, by all means go ahead and practice with the fingering. But if you are using a plectrum, let's try and do it alternate picking. So we're going to start down, up, and I'll explain that. But before I do, really quickly, I've drawn quite a dodgy picture of the fretboard here, but it will work for what we want to do. So this is our thickest string, second thickest string, third, and so on to the thinnest. So here's our E, A, D, G, B, and E strings. Now, if I started this on the 5th fret, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're going to run out of room. So, for argument's sake today, let's say this, I've run out of room there. Let's say this is our 5th fret. This is our 7th fret. This is our 9th fret. And this is our 10th. So I've chopped off this bit of fretboard here. Okay, I'll choose an orange. So this is our 5th fret we're dealing with here. So this is going to be here on the fretboard. I know this looks like a top note, but if I started on the 5th, it would look a bit more confusing because we'd run out of room. So we're going to start on the 5th fret, move up to the 7, to the 9. 5th fret on the next string, the A string, 7 and 9. So I've got that on there. Okay, so we're 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9. Now remember, try and use your first finger somewhere behind that fret. Try and get it behind the frets as much as possible. Okay, so we're 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9 on both those strings. That's quite a nice one because you're just following the dots along. And then if we can incorporate this down, down, because we're using alternate picking. Okay, then we go to our next series of notes where we're not on the 5th fret now, we're 6, 7, 9, 6, 7, 9. So we've got this position change here on the D string where we're moving up. And that's it there. Now, one thing to think about with this, when we're discussing chords at a later stage, this and this are our octaves. They're the same note, just higher in pitch. Okay, and then, what colour should I choose? Purple, why not? And then we've got our next little sequence. Okay, try and make that. That sort of makes sense. So now on the thinnest two strings, we're starting 7, 9, 10, 7, 9, 10, and that makes the whole scale shape. Now, I would start with my first finger wherever possible on the first note of each string, and then I'd probably go, so first, second finger to little finger. Try and get the little finger, the pinky finger, working as much as possible. So I'd go 1, 3, 4, probably with that, 1, 3, 4, and then here I'd be 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4. So each time what we're doing, I'll just bring that down. So our first fingers going to be starting us off on each string. And then here, I tend to use my second finger to the fourth. Now, if you find it easy to use your third, I've seen lots of people play like that, and that's absolutely fine, whichever you feel happy with this. But it's the case of using these different fingers, and then also trying to use that alternate picking on your picking hand if you're using a plectrum. Here on the thinnest two strings, I'll use my first finger, third to fourth, because your hand doesn't have to move too much then. And remember, what we're going to do with this, once we've learnt this shape, tomorrow I'm going to do a video on how each one of these relates to a chord, and then how we can move it around the fretboard. So we're in A because we're on the 5th fret, but we're going to look at it perhaps in B, then perhaps in G, and how these major and minor chords will work with those. We can keep this same pattern going that I'm going to show you. And then when it comes to writing, it doesn't matter what key you're working in, you'll know exactly which are going to be major and which are going to be minor. And that means that you've opened up a load of chord sequences that you can use, and you know it's going to work. You know, with this theory we're going to look at, you'll know that these chord sequences will work. So it's quite a quick way of working out keys and chords within the keys, which I think will be quite useful. So, but for now, if we learn this scale, so we've got the A major scale, and then again we've got it here. So 5 7 9 5 7 9 6 7 9 6 7 9 7 9 10 7 9 10, and remember it travels in 2 string sequences, so each 2 strings have their own little pattern. And then if you get to the stage where you think, got this is cool, try moving it. The great thing that the guitar has over a lot of instruments, so bass guitar and I suppose ukulele has as well, but our stringed instruments are, once we learn a shape, we can actually transfer that shape into different keys by starting on a different fret, whereas if you're on the piano, you would actually have to learn the different fingering for that. But guitarists, we're in quite a good position, because once we learn a shape, we can shift that down anywhere to change the key, and we don't have to learn new fingering because those patterns remain the same. Also, before I go, quickly, if you go on YouTube, once you get this and you think, I'm happy with this, it's sounding consistent as I'm going ascending and descending up and down the scale. If you go on YouTube, YouTube drums, say 60 BPM, try and play with the drums at 60 BPM, and if you've got that nailed, try perhaps moving up in, say, 10 BPM each time, so then go to 70 BPM. So just type in YouTube drums 70 BPM, check it out with that, and then you can keep going in increments of 10, getting faster, and then that's going to help for your picking and fretting hand, but also then playing along with drums, so when you come to then record, so it helps in loads of different ways, that one. But good luck with that A major scale.